Right now it is time to bring in Jim Lynch. It's time for Cover Your Assets. Jim, of course, is an independent voice on Wall Street, the economy, politics, the Yankees, the Mets, the Giants, the Jets, the Long Island Ducks.
Don't forget the Sharks.
The Sharks.
Jets and the Sharks.
That's right. Ladies and gentlemen, let's bring him in right now. Jim Lynch. Good morning, Jim.
And good morning. Next time I'm in Vegas, I'll look you up with that red, white, and blue cup.
Oh, I tell you, I used to protest on the green, and people get mad because at first they thought it was a flag because they weren't looking properly. But it
It's
wasn't
always
a
them.
flag. No, it wasn't a flag.
Of course not.
But you know they just
You wouldn't. You actually are the possessor of my favorite flag story, however, because you taught me something with it, and that was, I guess, you were putting your flag.
I put the flag up the wrong way on my house, and within an hour, I had a veteran say, no, you've got the flag hanging as a distress signal. And so I said, well, actually, my life is a distress, but I changed the way I hung the flag on the front porch.
And that was the first time I knew that was a distress signal.
Yeah, well, it
wasn't
the first time I knew, but I just didn't realize what it was anyway. Anyway, it was a low moment in flag hanging here, Jim, but I've gotten over it, so. Anyway, so you've been off for a week. What's happened, Jim, here?
What'd your hip guy say?
Not much, man. Just hanging. Just hanging.
That's right.
Well, it's good to know nothing's changed.
No, not at all. Really wonderful time. Wonderful time. Okay. I'm trying to catch up here. There's not much on the news.
It's August.
Yeah. Anyhow, I had a nice conversation with a kid the other day in the store. He had an L.A. Dodger hat on, and I was able to tell him about my adventures as a young kid, going by myself to Ebbets Field and being on an automobile in South Brooklyn when they won in '55. It was a little before Marshall's time, but anyhow,
I was 3 years old.
that was a delight. That was fun, and run into a lot of nice people with good smiles. Anyhow,
I actually, just to interject for 1 second before you start, think that is a good antidote for people. They really should talk to other people.
Yeah.
They just really should. Yeah. Whatever they are, they should just talk to them.
Yeah. Anyhow, let's see. Okay, so tough times, folks. I sent Mr. Trump a post on Twitter to him directly the evening of the shooting in El Paso. And I told him, and I'm telling you, that he has blood on his hands. And he's got blood on his hands because talking about flags, he has been waving this flag of deceit, basically criminally inciting people to do things that they may or may not have done on their own. But it's really quite pathetic that when you look back now over the months, you don't even have to look back over the year, over the months that no Republican has stood up and said, please stop this. You don't represent the country. And if you can't represent the country, why don't you go back to wherever you came from, wherever that was? Anyhow, so I'm not overly thrilled with what's going on. I don't think anybody is. And, I hear the pious ones out there, the prayers and the this and the that. Then I have Mitch McConnell, who won't bring to the floor gun control regulation to the floor of the Senate for a vote. And he's been stalling on that for, it seems, forever. We've had 10, 12 shootings, and there's been nothing concrete done. Your fella, Murphy, does a great job in trying to keep the fire lit in terms of getting it done. But, folks, it's your country. It's your old mall. It's your movie theater. Coming to you next week, who knows, some nut egged on by hatred. Start shooting up the place. So I guess it's time for people to get a little angry and start writing letters and telling people we're going to vote you out of office next year if you don't perform better.
Jim, this whole thing is never become more clear. And I know I have friends, and I come from a family of hunters, okay?
Right.
I never liked guns myself. Heck, I didn't even like to catch fish because I didn't want to kill a fish, but you can throw a fish back in the water after you catch it. No, that's the way it was explained to me by my uncle, because, everybody was taken out and learned how to shoot a gun and to go fishing. And so fishing, once I learned that you could throw the fish back, I didn't mind doing. But for me, I just never been into guns, but my family has been, and they were stored safely, they were kept safely, they were used for hunting, they were used for target practice, they were used for things like that. Nowadays, people seem to forget there's one difference between before all these horrible death tolls it became staggering. Semi-automatic long rifles used to be illegal. There weren't such things as bump stocks. You couldn't have an AK-44 look-alike gun. You couldn't have those. After that law was allowed to die and sunset.
When was that?
It was
approximately.
It was during the Bush administration, sometime during the
first or second?
The second Bush administration. Once that was allowed to sunset, you take a look, and there's a preponderance of gun shootings out there, but because they're being done with weapons that, Jim, you're in trouble as a nation when police respond within 1 minute. And in 1 minute, 9 people are dead and 26 are injured.
And the guy's wearing, and they kill him, and the guy's wearing body armor.
But in 1 minute, 9 people killed, 26 injured. In 6-minute response time, 22 people now are dead and 26 were injured. These numbers are staggering because of the weapons that are being used. There's not enough. The police were on the scene literally that second time and still couldn't prevent 9 people and 26 others from being injured. That should be the wake-up call to everybody.
And that's not part of it. Pretty much anyone can understand that. And, most responsible hunters and gun owners and conservationists would never go out and shoot an animal with an AK-47 or whatever.
And Jim, what most people don't realize, and people argued with me, Texas is an open carry state. You can carry your guns in Texas, okay? And in certain counties, you can have rifles holstered over your shoulder.
Are you allowed to have weapons of war? Can it be any weapon, or is it just like a musket?
It's the problem. And so people said, well, why didn't somebody stop him before he got in the store? Well, when you live in a county or live in a country where certain areas where you can carry anything you want, all of a sudden it doesn't become out of place. Do you know what I mean, Jim?
Yep.
And what's more frustrating is that apparently he was hungry. That's why he picked Walmart. I mean, that's the sort of thing that just, all right, so you're hungry, you walk in wearing your earmuffs and a gun, and what now? It beggars belief, it defies credulity.
What makes it even worse, Jim and Jill, is the guy drove 10 and a half hours to get to his destination. That's another point of this, which is
to get to El Paso, right?
Which is frightening.
Allen, Texas, to go to El Paso
because he knew that was on the border. And in the other shooting, Jim, the brother who shot his daughter, his sister and her boyfriend, that was an interracial couple. These are the frightening facts behind the shootings that really have to open your eyes.
Amen. Let's just start with the big guns. An executive order could probably put a hold on those, and then, if it need be, we could go to the Congress and settle it. There's absolutely no reason for anybody in this country to have such a weapon unless they think they're going to war and they're part of a militia. It's not a hunting item, and it can only inflict major damage. But it's unfortunately, the country has become blinded by the idea of, well, people want it, and we can make a good profit. And who are we to say what people do, and so forth and so on? Well, we're supposed to say we want to live free and walk the streets without trepidation. And with these guns available, you have to have trepidation. By the way, this mental situation that various people are putting out as some kind of stupid defense, you just cited, Marshall. This man drove 10 hours to a specific mall, which he knew was loaded with people on a day when they had a major sale. This is not some guy who just flipped out and got mad at a traffic stop or something. He planned it. He planned to inflict maximum damage, and he also planned to put damage on brown people. Yeah. This place in El Paso is frequented by Mexicans. El Paso is a city where you come and go very readily. It's a great community. And this man came and he basically shot it up because he didn't like the color of people's skins.
He drove there from pretty much an exclusive, white, well-heeled suburb just outside of Dallas. I don't know what the age of adulthood, whatever it's called, in Texas is. He's 21. Now, his screed/manifesto, which I have not seen, I don't think it was written overnight. He was definitely for X number of years part of this group. So it's not. None of this is. It's not. He woke up one day and snapped.
No, and that's the whole thing. And the second shooter also has a history as well. And here's the whole thing, Jim. And this is what.
And their kids.
This is what politics has done in this country. If you didn't have a red flag and people running around in front of a bull, there would never be such a thing as a bullfight. Okay, the bull wouldn't give a darn. The bull would
go bulling.
But you raise red flags and guess what? The bull charges. The bull attacks. The red flags have been raised by politics in this country. The red flags have been raised. And people who have felt marginalized, and people who have felt marginalized with guns, and with axes to bear for many different reasons, all of a sudden feel empowered. It's just this and
axes to bear. And what I'm really curious about, this is from way back. These things don't. Given these histories, these things don't happen in a vacuum. So what? Your kids, I understand that a vast number of people feel powerless to stop it. And I'm not talking about the after effects. I'm talking about the previous effect. I mean, you can't tell that your kid is what are you supposed to do if the guy's been, in this case, allegedly, we're talking about Dayton, allegedly suspended from school for various issues, and
there's nothing you can do because, and Jim will have the extra on us, and this is just simply because he's been around longer and been through different things that I'm 66, but I can tell you right now, the behavior that adolescents put on is everything nowadays is just considered acceptable, and there's no way the police agencies can keep up with this stuff on a moment-to-moment basis. And parenting, it's a different society nowadays.
Because I'm just thinking when I say the last three, meaning the last few days, right? Gilroy, El Paso, and Dayton, all were kids, basically.
And you can complain about video games and stuff like that, just like you can complain about movies, just like you can complain about MMA fights. You can find a reason for anything, but when the bottom line comes, and I don't care what anybody says, when they say the guns don't do the shooting, the people do the shooting, there's what, if you want to shoot an AK-44, Let's put a fund together, and all the gun clubs across the country, let's stock them with A44s. So if you want to shoot an A44 at a practice, guess what?
You can
Join
do
a
it.
gun club.
Right.
Join a gun club and
But how-
and shoot it at the gun club.
But I'm also wondering, how are these kids, and I keep calling them kids, but that's
because if you're over 18 in most states, you can buy a gun.
just because?
Yeah,
So it's like you're a teenager, you can go buy.
you can buy a gun.
You can weapon up.
You can weapon up. Absolutely. You don't
Marshall,
even-
you made a very excellent point in terms of the dangerous situation we have here when you said how effective in both the Dayton and El Paso situations, how effective the police were in getting there in such a short amount of time and stopping the carnage. But the point is, with this weapon, the carnage happens in under a minute. And therefore, we should just say we can't have that kind of thing available where people can go to a place and there are a lot of people there and just arbitrarily shoot because the damage is just incredible. Let's talk the NRA for a minute. We know that the NRA actually funneled money from Russia to our various candidates. Now, what gives the NRA any say in terms of what we do as a nation? They're just a marketing operation for gun manufacturers. But why do we give them such credence, almost reverence in certain parts of the country? We have our values kind of backwards. Here's an institution that does nothing than have meetings and give money to lobbyists, and they become an enabler by telling everybody, oh, it's okay, right to have a gun and so forth and so on. But, I mean, we've got to get real as citizens in terms of what we're letting happen, just as we've got to get much realer in terms of these lobbyists for all these various industries. I mean, we're supposed to have lower drug prices, right? Well, the administration's been around for a couple of years. Drug prices have just gone up. It was so amazing as we learned about El Paso. Not only do Mexicans come here to buy certain products that they can't get at home, but many people in that area go to Mexico. Americans go to Mexico to get their drugs. Their drugs, pharmaceuticals, are cheaper than in the United States. Now, just put that one in your mind and say, well, wait a second. I thought these Mexicans were bad guys. They're getting their pharmaceuticals at a cheaper price. Why exactly is that, people?
Jim, you're pointing out something very interesting here in the last 3 or 4 minutes that I think people in the Northeast, people in the Midwest, people in the Northwest don't understand. People in California, they do in the Southern California
They go
portion
back
of it,
and forth all the time.
that the people who live along the border, if you talk to people who are against the border line, but the border wall,
Right.
most of them are people that live along the border. There are some that are in favor of this border wall, but they're used to living with Mexicans, and they go back and forth all the time. They're neighbors. They're people that are in their communities. This is we're not as separate as people as this big country thinks.
Or as it's being portrayed. Because I have a friend who's been living in Mexico City for the last 6 months, 8 months, 10. No, I meant to say 16 months. It's just there's a lot more. As with many things, once you actually get down to the nitty-gritty operation of things, you find that what's going on versus what's being portrayed are two completely different,
A 21-year-old white rich kid from the Dallas suburbs has no idea how well people from Mexico and the border towns of El Paso and stuff interact with one another, and how there is no great racial divide.
It's sorry for muttering, but it's just, it would be very, in my view, of course, it wouldn't sell as many get as many eyeballs, but it would be very helpful. And that's why I went back to earlier. If just people just talk to each other, because then you find out that, oh yeah, my grandkids, yeah, my nephew's Mexican. Yeah, you just find this stuff out, and you realize, or you start seeing that the stereotypes in quotes that you're being given, or the identities that you're being given, actually don't reflect what's going on.
Well, we have about 3 minutes left, Jim, and we'll leave it up to you to wrap up.
Is it Christmas already?
It seems so. One would hope so.
I would hope so. Anyhow, this is very interesting because it points to a deficiency in our society, and it's no big whoop. I mean, we all have so many things to do, but so many of our people are not really aware of what we're talking about here. Where individuals in various towns, in this case Mexico, U.S., they have lives that they live. They're interspersed. They're doing a lot of different things, be it commerce or whatever. The point is, if you don't know that, that's fine. But do not accept stereotypes that are put out by politicians or marketers or advertisers that basically states that a group of people or a region of the country is what it is because they're telling you what it is. As Jill has told us many times, we've got to get more introspection in learning about these things. So when Trump came down the elevator, the Mexicans were all rapists. A lot of people were supposed to get up and say, hey, let me figure this thing out. And if they had, they would have found that that was a total falsehood. So, again, buyer beware of the news and do your homework. And it doesn't take that much. It just takes a few flips of the finger on the internet to get some facts on regions and so forth. Anyhow. I'm actually feeling a little better having this conversation because I've been kind of blue, to say the least. So I wish us all well. We live in the greatest country in the world, regardless of what is going on, and we can overcome this. But we have to get down to the nitty-gritty of living life for the sake of living life well. And you do that by sharing with people the good, the bad, and the ugly, and you self-correct when you don't know something. Anyhow, God bless everybody. Have a good week.
All right, Jim, we'll speak to you next week.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Jim Lynch and Cover Your Assets here on Robin Hood Radio. You can, of course, find all of Jim's commentary at robinhoodradio.com. Click on demand. Click on Jim Lynch, Cover Your Assets.